Florida Governor Ron DeSantis joined Senator Marco Rubio on the campaign trail at a rally Thursday. DeSantis, who is seeking his second term in the governor's mansion, sounded his usual stump speech, blasting the Biden administration, blaming Democrats for inflation, and promising to keep his state free of government mandates and intrusions. DeSantis has consistently led his Democratic challenger Charlie Crist and is considered highly likely to win re-election. Rubio has also led his own opponent, Congresswoman Val Demings, but by slimmer margins.
Thank you for being here. I'm really excited about November 8th. How many of you have already voted? Okay. How many of you are waiting till Election Day to vote? How many of you are going to vote before Election Day but haven't voted yet? Early? Anybody? We got some. Okay. Well, did anyone not raise their hand? Okay, we need 100% turnout, so please make sure you do. If you've already voted, we'd like you to be involved in making sure other people come out to vote. So talk to your friends, talk to family members, neighbors, people that you work with, employees, you name it. We need all hands on deck to keep Florida free. Now, I'm excited to be here. We recently in Florida had a visitor that came down, southern part of the state. He was wandering around a little aimlessly. I don't know if he knew where he was, but comes down and, to be honest with you, I viewed it as an in-kind contribution to my campaign to see Biden down here. Because what it does is it reminds every single person in the state of Florida that the Democrats are with him 100% of the time on his failed agenda. And the fact of the matter is they came into office and they created the worst inflation crisis that we have seen in 4 decades. And they act like it's somehow what they said it wasn't going to happen. Then they said it was a blip. Then they said it would peak in 6 months. Now they don't even know what to say. But things have been very tough because of their policies. And when you're in a situation like that, the last thing you want to be doing is doing things like reducing our ability to produce energy, which he did on the first day of office. We've got massive amounts of oil and gas. And when I was back in the day, Congress, we even opened up ANWR in Alaska. They've got more oil in ANWR than Saudi Arabia has. And yet he came in and he stopped pipelines. He stopped leases. He basically says, well, you need to do renewables. But I'll tell you, we just had a hurricane come through. To get your power back on, I can't do that with windmills. We need to have real energy. And so you're exacerbating the inflation by doing this with the energy, and it's terrible policy. It's hurting a lot of people. These guys are all in lockstep with him on this, and just think about how pathetic it is that he's begging Maduro for oil down in Venezuela. He's got to beg Saudi Arabia for oil, and of course OPEC cut production because Saudi doesn't respect Biden. They don't appreciate what he's doing by playing footsies with the Iranians. So, of course, they're going to cut production. And here's the thing. He's put our country in a vulnerable position with his policies. We should and we could be energy independent. And that's what we need to be doing. So he is doing all of that stuff. And now he's been on this kick where he claims that the people that don't support him are somehow threats to democracy. That's their new thing that they're saying. And, I just think to myself, because I try to think about what him and a lot of his supporters have been trying to do over the last couple years. It's not me and it's not you that are threatening to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. And it's not me and it's not you that's threatening to abolish the Electoral College. It's not me and it's not you who's saying that we should make D.C. a state so that they get 2 radical senators for life. And it's not me and it's not you that wants federal legislation to outlaw voter ID all across the country, which is what they want to do. So you tell me who's the threat when you're trying to take a sledgehammer to our constitutional system. And the voter ID, not only do they want no voter ID, they want to couple that with forcing every state to allow ballot harvesting. And that would be you get harvested votes and you don't know who these people are. So that's their vision and that's what they want to do. Incidentally, in Florida, because you have me here, we ban ballot harvesting in the state of Florida. Just very simple. Yeah. I believe in one person, one vote, and that's the way it should be. You shouldn't have some political operative paying to get a massive satchel full of votes and then dumping it in some drop box in the middle of town. That is not what a secret ballot is all about, and that is not one person, one vote. So we did do the ban on ballot harvesting. We've also required now local supervisors of elections, because they run the election on the county basis. The state doesn't. We're now requiring, because they were supposed to be doing this, but a lot of them weren't, required to clean your voter rolls every single year. And that's really important. In California, they will send out mail ballots. You don't even ask for ballots. They'll just send mail ballots out. And there will be people who haven't lived in California for 10 years, and they will get mail ballots sent in like Nebraska or New York or all these other places. And that's because they don't clean their voter rolls. And so we're now doing that, and I think that's very, very important. We also did something that some states have now followed, but I think every state needs to do, and that's ban Zuckerbucks in the state of Florida. We're not going to let them pour hundreds of millions of dollars into taking over the actual election offices and stuffing those offices with partisan political operatives. They were using and manipulating the machinery of the election in key states to advance a partisan agenda. And that's wrong. And in the state of Florida, it is no longer allowed. We also understood, it's important, we also understood that you can talk about no ballot harvesting, and we do have voter ID, of course, but you need to make sure that that is enforced. And so we created this year for the first time an office in state government that is focused on investigating and prosecuting election fraud and irregularities. And we had so just the other day, I think a week or two ago, they brought a case against a guy in Broward County, 9-time convicted felon and illegal alien, yet registered to vote and voted twice in 2021 in 2 different elections. One of those elections was decided by like 30 votes, and yet this person voted. And so when you have somebody who's not even a citizen voting, that could cancel out your vote and cancel out the things that you've worked hard for. And so it's very important that people be brought to justice. They've also brought cases against people who are convicted of rape and sex abuse. And you're not allowed to vote in Florida if you have those types of convictions. And so I think it's really good. And now what people understand is you do things like ballot harvesting at your peril, because the law will be enforced. And we're going to make sure that every vote counts, every legal vote counts, and that your legal votes aren't canceled out by this type of chicanery anymore. So we're proud to have led on election security and election integrity. And 2020, we ran a very efficient election. It took these other states days and weeks just to count the votes. We do it very quickly. And I guarantee you, November 8th, you are going to have a victor named very quickly, and it will be me in the governor's race. So, only if you guys all vote. That's the only way we win is if you all vote. So we're going to do that. And, I think Republicans are going to win the House and the Senate. I think they're going to do both. I'm worried, though, a little bit about some of these states and whether they're going to actually count the votes and report them on election night. What happens is like in California, it takes a month for them to count the votes. They actually had a mayor's election primary, and the two top candidates, the one guy that was winning the morning after the election, he went up by like 6 points, and he's like the non-communist option of the two in the Los Angeles mayor's race, and up by 6 points, and people were like, oh, wow, and it was a runoff, so it wasn't like he won, but it was 6 points. Then like 2 weeks later, the other candidate was up by 6 points. And I'm like, how does that happen? And, I was helping the candidate, our governor candidate up in New York, Lee Zeldin, with that race. And look, it's a tough state. Part of the reason is because a lot of the Republicans up there move here to live in our state. Any of you from New York that have moved down? Yeah, of course. It's a tough state, but I think he can do it because, people can be in their little partisan corners on some of this stuff, but when their personal security and their family safety starts to be called into question, people tend to want to do something about that. And what they are doing in New York is they are letting criminals run free, and the inmates are running the asylum. And so people are not safe, and they need to reverse these policies. And of course, Lee Zeldin will do that. So I'm optimistic. At the same time, New York takes like a month to count the votes. And it's like, I really hope that they will do a better job of counting the votes. But we're doing that here in Florida very well. We're going to continue to do it. But, you think about, so I went up there and helped them out because I've known him for a long time. So I helped them out. And I said, so I go up there and I do an event up there in Long Island. There was like a huge number of people. Everyone was real happy. Yeah. You're Long Island? Nassau or Suffolk County? Okay. We were in Suffolk, but actually not that far away. So, but I tell him, and it's sad that this is the case because, we have 50 states, obviously. They say a federalist system's a laboratory of democracy because one state can do it one way, the other states can do it, and then you can compare the results. And so that's really what we've had. Since I've been governor, we've probably had the most intense laboratory of democracy that we've had in any of our lifetimes, partially because COVID gave these governors pretext. They shouldn't have done it, but they were committing very, very bad policy mistakes, locking kids out of school, mandating, all these different things. And so you saw that happening. You also just see how your general governance is. You saw the education, what they were doing, and the crime. And so what we've seen a massive exodus from states and localities governed by leftist politicians. And they're going to places that are governed well, places that respect freedom, places that have opportunity, and places that are dedicated to law and order. So what does that mean? It means people have fled New York, Chicago, California, all these places. Michigan locked down Central for a long time. I used to see all these Michigan people come, and they were treated so poorly by their governor, and hopefully she'll be sent the door on November 8th. But so you've seen this really significant, I think, people voting with their feet like never before. But, I talk to people, and all of people come up to me and just give me a big hug. They're so happy to live in Florida. They're so happy about everything. And, it's great, and we feel great about what we're doing, and we're happy that people are happy, and people appreciate what they have in Florida. But it's also kind of sad because, you have these people that are being driven away. They're being treated terribly. Their rights aren't respected. The streets aren't safe. They're being taxed to smithereens. And so they're being driven out. And I just tell you, we had choices to make in Florida if you go back over the last few years. In fact, summer of 2020, this is when COVID was first starting, I got a letter. Every Democrat member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Florida wrote me a letter. And they said that we were being reckless by having businesses open. They said we were wrong to have kids in school in person, and they said that we needed to, because of COVID, shut down the state of Florida. They said we needed to force people to shelter in place in their homes, and that we should be imposing mandates. And so I thought about that, and I was like, if we do what they're telling us to do, it is going to destroy the state of Florida. It's going to throw millions of people's lives into turmoil. It's going to cause hundreds of thousands at a minimum Floridians to lose their jobs. It'll cause thousands and thousands of small businesses to go under, and it will lock out of school millions of school children. And so I thought about that, and I was getting hammered by the media, by the left. Even some of the Republicans were attacking me because they were drinking the Fauci Kool-Aid, and that's what they wanted to do. And Fauci was attacking me as well. Of course, he did that a lot. And so we're doing that, and and I'm taking the incoming. But at the end of the day, a leader's job is not to worry about protecting his own job. It's about worrying about protecting your jobs and your freedom. And if I have to take the arrows, then so be it. If it doesn't work out politically for me, so be it. It's not about saving your own hide. And so I was mindful of that, and I was mindful of not just following conventional wisdom, and I was mindful of making sure we were standing by people. So I took that letter, I crumpled up the letter, and I threw it in the trash can where it belonged. And so we've been fortunate that the state has done well. People have responded. We have the second lowest tax burden in the United States of all 50 states. We have the second lowest debt per capita ratio of all 50 states. We have no state income tax, and we won't as long as I'm around. And our budget in Florida, so I was in New York there, we have millions of more people than they do now. And yet our budget is less than half the size of their budget. But yet the New Yorkers tell me we have better roads, we have better services, we do have higher performing education. K through 12, we're number 3 and number 4 in the country, respectively, in 4th grade reading and 4th grade math. They're not anywhere close to that, and they're spending a lot more money. So we're doing it well. We're focusing, respecting you as taxpayers. But in the process of having no income tax, second lowest tax burden, and we did record tax relief, we had a $102 billion budget ending last fiscal year with a $22 billion surplus, the biggest in history. Nobody has ever seen a surplus that big in Florida. So you see that, and that would not have happened if I had listened to these Democrats and not allowed the economy to be open and not protected people's jobs. And so we're happy to do that. We're also very happy about what we did for education, because there were a lot of places that denied kids the ability to access education at all, keeping them out of school. A lot of teachers' unions refused to have kids in school in places like Chicago and Los Angeles. And these are mostly lower income, working class families. The people that lock the kids out of school who have power almost always would send their kid in person to school at a private school or private tutoring. So they wanted different sets of rules for themselves than they wanted to apply on the rest of the people. And so we understood that wasn't going to work in Florida. So we were the first big state to say schools will be open. Kids will be going. And we knew that was the right thing based on the data, but we got all kind of flack for that. I even got sued. They sued me to try to close the schools, and we beat them on the lawsuit as well. And so the result of all that is those rankings, and if you control for demographics, we're really number 1 in 4th grade reading and 4th grade math. When you do that, that would not have happened if these kids were not able to be in school. And so we're proud of what we've been able to do on education.